Bob Johnson was instrumental. About that time, Mr. Johnson conceived, from my standpoint, the idea of putting together an institution with the best black writers in America, whatever the price, whatever the cost. So about that time, I think it was the same time, he brought the best people he could find from the Baltimore Afro-American, from the Pittsburgh Courier, from the coast, Vincent Tubbs, people from all over the country, from New York, Simeon Booker, fresh out of the Harvard Neiman group. He brought all these people to Atlanta, to Chicago. And in the process, one of the people he brought to Chicago was Bob Johnson. And Bob, the late Bob Johnson, got to Chicago, and being Bob, he went to Mr. Johnson and he said, there's a writer down in Atlanta who's pretty good. You ought to look at him. And so they asked me to come up, and I came to Chicago, had an interview. And 51 years ago, this July the 1st, I came to Chicago. And again, oh, I love my timing because this was 1953, 54, on the edge of the greatest explosion in the black-white history of this country. So I was just on the scene for all that excitement. But I came to Chicago, joined Jet, and then later joined Ebony, and I've been here since then.
Now, this convergence of all of these wonderful black writers, I would also assume that they also had fairly large egos too.
Oh yes, yes.
I mean, how did the working relationship come together to produce a new publication that would appeal to enough people to make it viable, to make it profitable?
Yeah.
How was it defined by the people who put it together, including the writers?
Yeah. One thing before that, now the magazine, Ebony, was founded in 1945. It had been started 8 years or so when we got here. Jet started 51, I think it was. So they had been started. His idea, I assume, and you could ask Mr. Johnson this, I assumed his idea, and I know it was his idea, he said in his book, to put together the best available black talent, photographers, Bonita Sleet, writers, anywhere he could find them, in order to produce the best kind of magazine possible. It was already conceived of as Ebony was a black picture magazine, a word and pictures magazine. And if I had a moment, and I didn't want to extend this necessarily, I would point out what I think is the great innovation of publisher John H. Johnson was to make the words and pictures thing work. You see, from the time I grew up, even before I grew up, the major institutions in the black community were the black newspapers, the Chicago Defender, the Pittsburgh Courier, the African American. We lived by these papers. I mean, in Mississippi in my day, you just jump up and down on the weekend when a Defender would come there with those great big red headlines. And so all that worked very well until radio, and then in the 40s, TV, life in this period. Increasingly, American journalism was organized around the image, and it's still going that way. What Mr. Johnson did was he conceived of a way to make the black journalism idea work by wedding words and pictures in Ebony in 45. And that was a continuation of that when all the people came in, and it worked. back to all the people who came in. I don't know. We're talking about an environment, of such great talent, male and female. I don't remember the fighting on that level. The fight was to produce the best piece you could do. And if you didn't do a good piece, you were in trouble because somebody else on the staff could do a better piece. So you were always raising the bar. And another thing that happened then with Johnson Publishing Company and Ebony in particular, Mr. Johnson had the idea, from my side, my interpretation, that you go first class. I mean, for a long time in the Negro press, you didn't go first class. You didn't. But when we came to Ebony in that period, if the story is in Jamaica, you get on a plane, go to Jamaica. You stay in a hotel and 2 weeks and you get the story. If it happened in Seattle, you go to Seattle. You go first class. And the idea was you go first class. So that was the ethic of this group. And it, again, Moneta Sleet, the great photographer, Vincent Tubbs, Bob Johnson, Clotie Murdoch. Oh, I could just go down the line naming the great writers, Arabelle Thompson, who participated in that explosion, that cultural explosion.